Hey, welcome to our explainer. We've all seen explosions in movies, right? The big flash, the fireball, the debris flying everywhere, but what is really going on inside all that chaos? Well, today, we're going to deconstruct destruction itself. We're peeling back the layers of a blast wave to get a look at the invisible forces at play, from the big chunks of shrapnel you can see all the way down to the subatomic particles you can't.
So, here's our game plan. First up, we'll get into what a blast wave actually is. Then, we'll see its two main parts collide, in a real-world scenario. After that, we'll look at how scientists can even study these split-second events, before we shrink way down to the atomic level to watch an invisible dance of forces. And finally, we'll zoom back out to see what it all means, the bigger picture.
All right, let's jump right in. We're going to move past all the sound and fury you see on screen and get straight to the science. So what are the fundamental pieces that give an explosion its destructive power?
I mean, think about it. The whole event is over in less than the blink of an eye. So what's happening in that tiny fraction of a second? Turns out, it's not just one big bang, but a really devastating 1-2 punch.
And here are the two key players in that punch. First, you've got the shockwave. This is basically an invisible wall of super high-pressure air moving faster than the speed of sound. It's the initial knockout blow. But right on its heels, you've got the high-velocity fragments, the shrapnel. It's kind of like the shockwave kicks the door in, and the fragments are the destructive force that comes rushing right through the opening.
Now, what's really interesting is how these two things work together. And understanding this interaction isn't just for fun. It's absolutely critical for solving some major real-world engineering challenges.
For instance, a huge focus for this research is protecting really sensitive and complex gear, like unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs. We're talking about incredibly sophisticated pieces of technology, and figuring out how to shield them from a blast means you have to understand exactly what they're up against, down to the microsecond.
So the crucial thing to realize is that this is a coordinated attack. The shockwave gets there first. It slams into the UAV and essentially softens it up, putting the whole structure under just immense stress. Then, just moments later, the fragments hit this already weakened material. Whether the UAV survives or not depends entirely on its ability to handle this 1-2 punch, this combined back-to-back assault of energy.
Okay, but this brings up a pretty obvious problem, right? How on earth do you study an event that is so incredibly fast, so violent, and so complex? It's not like you can just hit the slow motion button in real life. It's a fundamental challenge for scientists. How are you supposed to gather data on forces and impacts that last for just a few milliseconds? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't to build a better camera, it's to build a better reality.
That's right, you build a digital twin. By harnessing massive amounts of computing power, scientists create a perfect virtual model of the explosion, and this lets them do the impossible. They can watch the event unfold, they can pause it, rewind it, and analyze every single tiny detail in a way you just never could in the real world.
And this is where some seriously cool tech comes in. One of their key tools is the SAL algorithm. That's S-A-L-E. It's a program that's designed to model the shockwave itself. And get this, it actually treats the blast like a complex fluid, simulating how that wave of high pressure moves and expands. This gives them a perfect picture of the first part of that devastating 1-2 punch. And then you've got the ConWeb algorithm. So while SAIL is modeling the wave, ConWeb is focused on the result, the damage. It calculates and predicts all the physical destruction, the bending, the breaking, and the cratering caused by the blast and the fragments. So when you put these two tools together, scientists can see the entire picture, safely and with incredible precision.
But here's the thing. Modeling shrapnel and shockwaves, that's only part of the story. Some explosions operate on a completely different level. To understand them, we have to go smaller, much smaller. We're about to move from the physics of big impacts to the invisible dance of subatomic particles.
Okay, this is where it gets really wild. Inside certain types of blasts, say a nuclear one, the fragments aren't just little inert pieces of metal. No, they are positively charged atomic nuclei, in this case, uranium fission fragments. And because they have an electric charge, they don't just fly in a straight line. They're being steered by a whole new set of invisible forces.
So, let's break down the forces that are at play here. First, you have inertia. That's just the particle's own momentum trying to keep it going straight, kind of like when you try to push a heavy bowling ball. But fighting against that, you have dissipation forces, basically drag, trying to slow it down. Like that feeling of resistance when you move your hand through water.
But remember,
These particles are charged, and that means two more forces join the dance. You've got electric fields, which act like an invisible current, either pushing or pulling the particle along a certain path. And then you have magnetic fields, which act like an invisible wind, bending its trajectory and making it curve. It's this complex, four-way tug-of-war happening on a single atomic nucleus.
So wow, we've gone from the big, destructive macro view of an explosion all the way down to the subatomic level. So let's zoom back out, tie it all together, and see what this complete picture really tells us.
So what are the big takeaways here? Well, first, an explosion is a two-stage attack. Shockwave first, then fragments. Second, the only way we can really understand it is by building virtual explosions with amazing tools like the SALE and CONWHIP algorithms. Third, underneath all that visible destruction, there's an invisible dance of forces, electric, magnetic, inertial, guiding charged subatomic particles. And finally, and this is the most important part, understanding both of these scales, the big and the small, is the only way we can ever hope to design better, stronger, and safer protective technologies.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really interesting thought. The ability to simulate such a chaotic, high-energy event with this level of detail is just remarkable. It really makes you wonder, if we can digitally deconstruct and predict the physics of a blast wave, what other incredibly complex systems, things like climate patterns or even biological processes, are we on the verge of finally understanding?